Friends, let me tell you about something that happened last winter that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning. You know that hour, when the house creaks and you can't blame it on the wind. When you lie there thinking about folks you've lost and promises you didn't keep. I'm pushing 70 now, been a nurse at Rushford General for 43 years, delivered most of the babies in this county, held hands with their grandparents when it was time to let go. Thought I'd seen everything life could throw at a person. But that February night on Old Highway 7 taught me different. This isn't just another story about a stray dog, though Lord knows we've all got those. This is about the kind of love that doesn't make sense on paper. The kind that sends you into a blizzard when common sense says stay put. The kind my own mother showed when she walked 10 miles through a snowstorm in '53 to get medicine for my baby brother. The Peterbilt's air horn could have woken the dead in Rushford Cemetery 2 miles away. I pumped my Buick's brakes hard, same way my husband Harold taught me 38 years back, before the cancer took him. The car slid sideways on the black ice, headlights swinging wild across that German Shepherd, standing dead center in the westbound lane. Temperature gauge read 11 below, the kind of cold that makes your nose hairs freeze on the first breath. That dog looked like a skeleton wrapped in patchy fur, her ribs showing through like washboard ridges. Her back leg dragged at an angle that made my nurse's instincts scream. Broken. Maybe worse. But it was what she carried that stopped my heart cold. A gas station sandwich, still wrapped in plastic, clenched between jaws that shook from more than cold. That 18-wheeler bore down on her like Judgment Day. The driver laid on the horn again. The sound bounced off the elm trees lining the road. The dog's eyes caught my headlights, flashed green as bottle glass. But she didn't budge. Not 1 inch. The truck's grill missed her by a hair's breadth. The wind from it knocked her sideways. But she kept that sandwich tight. When she finally limped toward the shoulder, drops of blood marked her path across the snow, dark as coffee stains on white linen. Her paw pads were torn raw from running on frozen ground. I pulled over beside Henson's old grain elevator, grabbed the flashlight from my glove box, the heavy mag light Harold bought me for emergencies. My boots crunched through the fresh snow. 23 years working emergency at the hospital. I'd seen every kind of hurt the good Lord allows. But this was different somehow. That dog looked back at me once, then kept going toward the warehouse district where Mitchell Tire used to be before the factory jobs went to Mexico. Every instinct in that poor creature should have said, drop the food and run. Lord knows she was starved enough to eat it herself right there. But she held on to that sandwich like it was made of gold. I followed, my boots finding her bloody tracks, past the old farmer's co-op where my daddy used to buy seed, around the warehouse where Jimmy Mitchell ran his tire shop for 40 years before the bypass killed Main Street. The dog squeezed through a gap in the chain fence, leaving fur and fresh blood on the twisted metal. Inside that fence, the silence pressed against my ears like cotton. You know that quiet, winter quiet, when even the wind holds its breath and waits. I squeezed through after her, my good wool coat catching on the wire. Harold's coat, actually. Still smelled like his pipe tobacco after 5 years. My flashlight beam swept across loading docks thick with ice, past dumpsters nobody'd emptied since the city council cut the budget. Then I heard it. Faint as a church mouse. But mice don't cry like that. I followed the sound, my light catching fresh paw prints in the snow. They led to a loading door hanging crooked, probably broken since the Reagan years. The rusty hinges screamed when I pushed inside. Colder in there than outside, if that was possible. The kind of cold that settles in your bones and stays for days. The crying stopped. My flashlight swept the warehouse floor, pallets stacked against walls like old gravestones. Yellow insulation hanging down like Spanish moss back when Harold and I vacationed in Savannah, and there, in the far corner where someone had dragged cardboard to make a shelter, the German Shepherd stood guard over something, that sandwich still locked in her jaws. She lowered her head, and I heard plastic crinkling. Poor thing was trying to open it with paws too damaged to work right, making sounds that weren't quite whimper, weren't quite prayer. I stepped closer, and her head snapped up. A growl rumbled from her chest, not mean, but desperate, like my neighbor Clara when they tried to take her husband to the nursing home against her wishes. That's when my light found them. 4 puppies, maybe 3 weeks old, huddled against their mother's belly. One of them, Lord have mercy, wasn't moving right, breathing like my grandson with pneumonia, all wheeze and struggle. That mother dog looked at me, then at her babies, then at that sandwich she couldn't open with her torn-up paws, and I swear on Harold's grave, I saw in her eyes the same look I'd seen in 100 mothers in the ER, holding sick babies and asking the question nobody wants to answer. What if love isn't enough? Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now let's get back to the story. My phone showed 11:47. The flip phone my daughter insists I carry, though half the time I forget to charge it. Mark would be awake. Since he came back from Iraq, he never slept before 2. Sometimes I'd see his workshop light on at 4 in the morning, him out there sanding wood like he could smooth away whatever he saw over there. That German shepherd managed to pierce the sandwich wrapper with her eye tooth. Same way I used to open Harold's medicine bottles when my arthritis got bad. Turkey fell onto the cardboard, that processed kind that smells like salt and nothing else. The puppies squirmed toward it, but their eyes were barely open. Their mother knew, Lord, she knew. They were too young for solid food. She was trying to eat it herself, to make milk from nothing. I knelt 5 feet away, my knees protesting on the concrete, close enough to see the rings of scar tissue around her neck where fur would never grow again. Like the marks on my grandmother's wrists from the state hospital restraints, back when they didn't know better about mental illness. The warehouse smelled of motor oil and mouse droppings. Same smell as Daddy's garage where I'd hide during thunderstorms. Through the broken windows, I heard Jake Morrison's plows scraping down Main Street. The smallest puppy had a white mark on its forehead, shaped like the Star of Bethlehem in the church's stained glass. Its breathing rattled like coffee percolating, wet and wrong. Headlights swept the walls. Mark's truck, that old Ford he'd rebuilt with his father before the accident. I heard his uneven walk on the gravel, favoring the left leg that never healed right after Fallujah. He pushed through the door, carrying the space heater from our garage. The orange extension cord looped over his shoulder like he was heading to set up Christmas lights. "Sweet Jesus," he said, taking it all in. The dog's growl started in her chest, rose like steam from a kettle. Her lips pulled back, showing teeth yellow as old piano keys. But she didn't stand. Probably couldn't. Mark plugged the heater into an outlet that somehow still worked. Miracle, considering this place had been empty since the plant closed. The coils glowed orange as October leaves. He sat against the far wall, didn't look straight at her. Same way he'd approached our neighbor's horse after it got tangled in barbed wire. He pulled bologna from his jacket, the Oscar Mayer kind we ate as kids, peeled off a slice, and slid it across the floor. Then I saw them. Fresh gouges in the concrete leading from the door, 4 parallel scratches, over and over, deep enough to leave powder on the surface. Claw marks from being dragged. The claw marks ran 15 feet from the door. My flashlight followed them, 4 lines, then a gap where she'd lifted her paw, then 4 more. The pattern you see when something fights being pulled away from everything that matters. Mark saw them too. That muscle in his jaw jumped. Same tell from 43 years of marriage. Back when he'd come home from the plant after they'd laid off another shift. He slid another bologna slice across the floor. Closer, this time. Close enough I could see the expiration date had passed 2 weeks back. The dog's nose twitched like my mother's when she tested if the milk had turned. She belly crawled forward, keeping her body between Mark and those puppies. The way she moved, Lord, I'd seen that before. Patience with broken ribs, trying to breathe shallow so nothing shifted inside. Her tongue, dry and pale as communion wafers, pulled the meat into her mouth. She swallowed without chewing. When they stopped garbage pickup, Mark asked. His voice stayed low, the way you'd talk in church during prayer. Tuesday, City Council voted, trying to balance the budget after the mill closed. 3 days back, the arithmetic was simple as counting collection plate money. No garbage trucks meant no food in the dumpsters. No food meant no milk. No milk meant those puppies would starve slow as wheat in a drought year. The smallest one made a sound like rusty hinges on a screen door. I pulled the saline bottle from my purse, old habit from the hospital, carrying supplies like some women carry lipstick. Poured it into a hubcap Mark had kicked loose from a wheel rusted through. The dog watched me push it forward with my boot, then slide back the way I'd learned approaching scared patients. Slow, predictable, safe. She crawled to it. Her tongue splashed water everywhere, desperate as my father's milk cows when we'd forget to fill the trough in August heat. Water dripped from her whiskers when she lifted her head. She looked at me. Not grateful, dogs don't think that way, but measuring, deciding if I was trouble or not. Mark's phone buzzed. The screen lit his face blue in the orange heater glow. Text from Nathan Walsh, who ran the IGA on Elm. Your wife looking for that dog. Called police yesterday. Thing was in my dumpster. He showed me the screen. I remembered Nathan from Katie's funeral, our daughter who never made it to 17. He'd brought a casserole, stood in the doorway 5 minutes, left without speaking, the way men grieve in small towns, silent as prayer. Yesterday. The timeline clicked together like tumblers in the lock. Dog tries finding food Friday. Gets chased off. Desperate by Saturday. Makes that highway run tonight, Sunday, when even God's supposed to rest. The space heater's coils painted orange stripes across the warehouse walls, made shadows dance like flames in the church's Advent candles. The biggest puppy, brown with one white ear like the Hendersons' old barn cat, crawled toward the warmth. Its mother watched but didn't stop it. Trust or exhaustion, I couldn't say. Mark pulled out his phone again, started recording. Documentation, like he'd learned in the service. Need proof of what you've seen, he'd told me once, or folks back home won't believe the truth of it. The mother tried standing. Her back leg buckled like a folding chair at a church social. She fell hard, concrete meeting bone. Tried again. On the third attempt, she made it up on 3 legs, the fourth hanging useless as a broke gate. She hobbled to that brown puppy, picked it up by the scruff, gentle as my grandmother lifting eggs, carried it back to their cardboard nest, then back for the second, the third, the fourth, the one with the star, wasn't moving at all. She nosed it. A whine escaped her throat, thin as thread. She picked it up so gentle I had to look away, remembering Katie in the hospital bed, machines doing what her lungs couldn't. The mother dog carried this puppy to the nest, crawled around all 4, started licking the still one with mechanical persistence, the rasp of her tongue on its fur, the only sound besides the heater's hum and my own breathing. 20 seconds passed on my watch. 30. Time stretched like taffy at the county fair. The puppy sneezed. Tiny paws paddled air like swimming through nothing. Alive, but barely hanging on. I stood, my knees cracking like kindling. I'm getting supplies from the car. Mark's warning tone, same as when I'd wanted to confront the drunk driver who took Katie. I'm not watching this. My voice came out harder than intended. Behind me, I heard Mark slide the rest of the bologna across the floor. Heard the dog's teeth working the meat. Heard those puppies crying for milk that wasn't there, might never be there again. Outside, the thermometer in my Buick read 9 degrees. Dashboard clock showed 12:16. I grabbed the emergency kit from the trunk. Blankets Harold made me keep there. Bottled water, granola bars from Sam's Club I'd packed for long shifts. My phone rang. Sarah Coleman's name lit the screen, the veterinarian who'd helped Harold's hunting dog, then held my hand when we had to let her go. Emily? Saw your husband's post on that Facebook thing. Is that dog aggressive? No. Scared. Hurt. Back leg's bad. I can be there in 20 minutes. It's past midnight, Sarah. So, puppies don't care what time it is. I smiled. First time in 8 months. Warehouse behind Mitchell Tire. Bring formula. I headed back inside. The heater had raised the temperature maybe 5 degrees, just enough to make the cold bearable instead of brutal. That's when I saw what Mark had found in the corner, half buried where cardboard met wall. A leather collar, thick as my thumb, with metal spikes that caught the flashlight beam. The buckle was broken, leather torn through, burned into the leather, clear as a brand on cattle. Briggs. I knew that name. Tom Briggs from the factory, laid off last spring, spent his unemployment checks at Murphy's Bar, where Harold used to stop Fridays after work. Katie had gone to school with Tom's daughter before. The smallest puppy stopped breathing. No warning, just stopped. Like someone had flipped a switch, Mark's hands moved before I could speak. 2 fingers on that tiny chest, pressing no wider than a penny. His counting came out in whispers. 1, 2, 3, 4. The mother dog's head snapped up fast as a mousetrap. A snarl ripped from her throat, the kind that makes your backbone know your prey. She lunged forward, made it 2 inches before that broken leg folded. Her teeth clicked shut on empty air where Mark's wrist had been a heartbeat before. He didn't pull back, kept pumping that little chest. 5, 6, 7. The mother dragged herself forward on her belly, front legs pulling her weight, like my Uncle Pete after the mining accident took his legs. Mark's free hand went up, palm flat, not threatening, just there. She hit it with her chest, and through the warehouse quiet, I heard bones under fur. She weighed nothing, like newspapers stacked wrong. 15, 16, 17. My hands found the space heater, dragged it closer. The orange coils reflected in the mother's eyes, made them look like the gas flames in my grandmother's old stove. She watched Mark's fingers work her puppy's chest, and that growl in her throat dropped to a whine, then to nothing. She knew, the way mothers always know. 28, 29, 30. Mark tilted that tiny head back with one finger, gentle as adjusting a pocket watch, covered the nose and mouth with his lips, barely had to purse them, the puppy was so small. The smallest puff of air. The puppy's chest rose like bread dough. Fell. He went back to compressions. The mother's tail, I hadn't noticed she had one until now, it had been tucked so tight under her, gave one single movement. Not a wag, just acknowledgement. Headlights swept through the broken windows. Dr. Sarah Coleman pushed through the door, veterinary bag in one hand, the kind of cardboard carrier we used for Harold's barn cats in the other. She took in the scene. Mark doing CPR on something the size of a church mouse. Mother dog collapsed beside him. Me holding that spiked collar like evidence at a trial. "Keep going," Sarah said, already kneeling. Her bag opened with a snap that echoed. The smell of antiseptic cut through the motor oil and decay. Same smell from Katie's hospital room. She pulled out a tiny mask connected to a rubber bulb. "Switch on 30. 26, 27, 28. Sarah's hands replaced Mark's, smooth as a Baptist choir changing hymns. The mask covered that puppy's whole face. She squeezed the bulb. Once, twice. The puppy's ribs expanded like tiny bellows. Nothing. The mother dog crawled forward, put her head on Mark's knee. I felt her breathing from where I sat, rapid and shallow, like she was running a race lying still. Her eyes never left her baby. Sarah squeezed again. Again. The rhythm like my mother working butter in the churn. The puppy coughed, a sound no bigger than stepping on a June bug. Its paws paddled air, swimming through nothing. Sarah pulled the mask away, and that puppy took a shuddering breath on its own. Then another. The mother's tail beat the concrete 3 times. Real wags. "Dehydrated," Sarah said, pulling a syringe from her bag. "Hypothermic. Maybe pneumonia." She looked at the mother. She's worse. That leg's infected. Can you smell it? I could now that you mentioned it. Sweet rot under the warehouse stink, like potatoes gone bad in the cellar. Sarah filled the syringe from a vial labeled with words I couldn't read in the dim light. Can you hold her? She won't, I started. The mother dog looked at me, at the puppy breathing in Sarah's hands, back at me. Then she rolled onto her side, showing her belly. White fur there, with pink skin showing through. Complete surrender. Or complete trust. Sometimes they look the same, like when Harold finally let me help him to the bathroom those last weeks. I knelt beside her, put my hands on her shoulders. The fur felt like straw at the end of August, brittle and dry. Through it, I felt her heart going fast as hummingbird wings, the fever heat of infection, the trembling that wasn't from cold. Sarah cleaned a spot on the dog's front leg with alcohol, the smell sharp as Saturday night. The mother didn't flinch when the needle went in, medicine flowing into her bloodstream, antibiotics that might save her, or might be too late. Then another injection. The trembling eased. The puppies need formula now, Sarah said. She pulled bottles from the carrier, the small kind we'd used for orphaned kittens on the farm. Real milk would be better, but... She looked at the mother's empty teats, hanging like deflated balloons after a church social. Mark was already mixing formula powder with warm water from the thermos Sarah had brought. His hands steady now, not like when he'd first come home from Iraq and couldn't hold a coffee cup without shaking. He'd done this before, I remembered. Summer of '99, when the Hendersons' barn cat got hit by a hay baler, left 5 kittens behind. Sarah examined each puppy with fingers gentle as testing ripe tomatoes. The 3 larger ones were dehydrated but breathing steady. The small one with the star? Fighter, Mark said. Sarah looked at him. That's his name. Fighter. She nodded. Fighter needs more than formula. She pulled out an IV bag the size of a juice box, the kind they'd used for Katie when she couldn't keep water down. Found a vein in the puppy's front leg that looked like blue thread under tissue paper. The smallest needle I'd ever seen slid home. The mother watched everything. When Sarah moved to examine that infected leg, she held still. Even when Sarah pressed on the swollen tissue and pus leaked out yellow as custard, she just closed her eyes, panted through it like a woman in labor. This needs surgery, Sarah said. Tonight, the bone might be infected. Will she... I stopped myself. Survive? Maybe. If she eats. If the infection responds. If she trusts us enough to let us help. Sarah looked at the collar in my hands. Briggs? Tom Briggs. I know him. Sarah's voice went flat as week-old soda. Brought in a hunting dog 2 years back. Said it wouldn't retrieve anymore. Wanted me to put it down. Dog was healthy as a horse, just old. Did you? I told him to get out of my clinic and never come back. The mother dog's medication was working. Her eyes drooped like they did when we'd given Harold morphine. But she fought to stay awake, jerking alert every time her eyes started closing. Checking her puppies, checking us, checking the door. Mark held a formula bottle to the biggest puppy's mouth. It latched on like it had been waiting its whole short life for this moment, tiny paws kneading the air. The mother watched, and something shifted in her face. Not human expression, but recognition maybe. These strangers were feeding her babies. My phone lit up with a text from the hospital. Where are you? Shift started an hour ago. I looked at my watch. 1:47 a.m. I was never late. 23 years, never once late. Call in, Mark said without looking up from the puppy. Family emergency. I made the call, told them I had a family situation. Not technically a lie. Sometimes family isn't about blood. Sarah had all 4 puppies feeding now, the bottles propped so they could nurse while she examined the mother more thoroughly. Her hands found each scar like reading Braille. Old wounds healed wrong. BB pellets embedded under skin. I could feel them, hard as seeds in a watermelon. She's been bred before, Sarah said quietly. Multiple times. These aren't her first puppies. Where are the others? I asked, though I already knew. Sarah's silence was answer enough. Same silence when the doctor told us about Katie's test results. The mother's eyes had finally closed, medications pulling her under like a tide, but her tail stayed curled around her puppies. And even unconscious, her nose pointed toward the door. On guard, even in sleep. "We need to move them," Sarah said. "Tonight. Temperature's dropping. That leg needs surgery within hours or she'll lose it. Maybe worse. The puppies need warmth, proper care." The warehouse door slammed open hard enough to bounce off the wall. A flashlight beam hit us like a searchlight in those old war movies Harold watched. Behind it, a man's shape filled the doorway. The smell rolled in with him. Cigarettes and stale beer, the same smell from Murphy's bar on Friday nights. "What in the hell are you doing with my dog?" Tom Briggs stepped into the orange light of the space heater, and that unconscious mother dog's eyes snapped open, like she'd been shocked with electricity. She tried to stand, to put herself between Briggs and her puppies, but her broken body wouldn't work. All she could do was whimper. Tom Briggs swayed in that doorway like a scarecrow in wind. His Carhartt jacket had burn holes from dropped cigarettes. I could see them even in the dim light, little black craters like tiny mouths. The flashlight in his hand shook, but not from cold. I knew that tremor from the hospital. Too much whiskey, not enough food. "Asked you a question." He stepped forward. Glass from the broken windows crunched under his Red Wing boots. "That's my property you're messing with." The mother dog's whine started low in her chest, rose like steam from a tea kettle. Her whole body shook against the concrete, but different from the cold shakes. This was memory made flesh, muscles remembering pain before it arrived. Mark stood slow as sunrise. At 6'2", he had 4 inches on Briggs, 20 years younger too. Not anymore. "The hell she's not." Briggs swung the flashlight beam at Mark's face. "Got the papers at home. Paid $400 cash for that dog. Pure German Shepherd, good breeding stock." Sarah pulled her phone from her pocket, held it up. The little red light meant recording. Briggs noticed, swung the beam at her. "Turn that thing off." "No." Sarah's voice steady as a church bell. The mother dog tried crawling backward, dragging the puppies with her. The IV line and Fighter's tiny leg pulled tight. He squeaked, a sound that made Briggs look down. Puppies. His mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. Should have known she'd run off to whelp. Stupid mutt never could follow simple training. "Training?" I stood, still holding that spiked collar. "This what you call training?" Briggs's eyes flicked to the collar. Recognition, then dismissal. So she chewed through leather thick as my thumb to get away from you. Wouldn't need to chain her if she knew how to mind. Mark's hands flexed at his sides. I saw it in my peripheral vision. The same motion before he'd punched the wall when Katie's doctors said there was nothing more they could do. "Mark." My voice came out low, warning. He heard me. His hands relaxed a fraction. Briggs took another step into the warehouse. The mother dog urinated where she lay, the ammonia smell sharp in the cold air. Her eyes rolled back, showing white crescents like broken china. But she didn't move from those puppies. Not 1 inch. "Look at her," Sarah said, phone still recording. "She's terrified." "That's respect." Briggs spit tobacco juice on the floor. "Something you people don't understand about working dogs. They need to know who's boss." "I worked with military dogs in Iraq," Mark said, his voice level as water in a glass. "Real working dogs. They don't piss themselves when they see their handler." Briggs laughed. Sounded like gravel on a garbage disposal. "Military, right. Another government welfare case living off my tax dollars." That muscle in Mark's jaw jumped like something alive under his skin. I stepped between them. "Tom, she's dying. Look at her. That leg's infected. She needs surgery tonight or she won't make it to morning." "Good. Save me the trouble. Vet here wanted $300 just to spare." He looked at Sarah. "Rather get a new dog. Plenty of puppies at the pound. The mother dog's tail curled tighter around her babies. Fighter's breathing had gone ragged again, tiny chest working like a bellows with a hole in it. "I'll buy her," I said. The words came out before I'd thought them through. Briggs's eyes sharpened like he'd sobered up instant as coffee. "Yeah, how much?" "400, what you paid." "She's worth more now. Got puppies. 4 of them. That's income." 300, Mark said. "That's what we've got in checking." Briggs snorted. Sounded like the pigs at my uncle's farm. 400 for her. 50 each for the puppies. 600 total. "They'll die without treatment," Sarah said. "All of them. Tonight." "Not my problem once you pay up." My mind went to our savings account. $800. Everything left after Katie's funeral expenses. "We don't have 600. Briggs shrugged. "Then I'll take my dog." He stepped toward the mother. She screamed. Not a bark, not a howl. A scream like I'd heard only once before. When they'd brought in a child hit by a combine harvester. Pure terror given voice. Mark moved faster than thought. 1 second Briggs was reaching down. Next second, Mark had his wrist twisted behind his back, face pressed against the warehouse wall. "I said don't touch her." "Assault." Briggs's voice muffled against the concrete. "This is assault. Sarah, you're recording. You saw it." Sarah kept filming. "I saw you attempt to take an injured animal that needs immediate medical care." The weeks that followed blurred together in my memory like watercolors in rain. We took them all to Sarah's clinic that night. Mark carrying the puppies while Sarah and I supported the mother between us. She didn't fight. Couldn't. The infection had spread to her blood, Sarah said. Another day and sepsis would have killed her. The surgery took 4 hours. I sat in the waiting room with Mark, neither of us talking. Just sitting the way we'd sat in the hospital waiting room 8 months back, waiting for news we already knew would be bad. But this time was different. This time Sarah came out with tired eyes but a small smile. She'll make it. The leg too. Pins and antibiotics. But she'll walk again. We named her Luna because she howled at the moon that first night post-surgery. Not sad, but calling, like she was telling the world she'd survived. The routine started natural as breathing. Every morning at 6, before my shift at the hospital, I'd stop at the clinic. Mark would already be there. He'd started going at 5, saying Luna needed to know we were dependable as sunrise. First week, she'd growl when we entered. Not mean, just warning. We'd sit against the far wall, quiet as church mice, until she got used to us being there. Mark would read his father's old westerns aloud. Said dogs liked the rhythm of voice, even if they didn't understand words. By the second week, her tail would thump once when we walked in. Just once, but it was something. Nathan Walsh from the IGA showed up Tuesday of week 3, carrying a 50-pound bag of premium dog food over his shoulder like a sack of flour. His wife Margaret was with him, arms full of blankets their church group had collected. "Saw that Facebook thing," Nathan said, not meeting my eyes. "About the dog I called the cops on." He set the bag down, gentle as eggs. "I didn't know she had babies, didn't know she was hurt. Just saw her in my dumpster and wanted her gone." Luna watched from her bed, head tilted like she was listening to a radio program. Nathan knelt down slow, the way you'd approach the altar for communion. Extended his hand for Luna to smell. She stretched her neck, nostrils working. Then, Lord is my witness, she licked his fingers. "I'm sorry," he said to her. Should have looked closer. Should have seen. Week 4 brought the miracle. Fighter had been struggling. The smallest puppy, he couldn't compete with his siblings for the bottles. His weight dropped daily. Each ounce lost a step toward giving up. Mark stayed up all night Tuesday, feeding Fighter every hour with a syringe. Drop by drop, patient as Job. When I arrived Wednesday morning, Mark was asleep in the chair, Fighter curled on his chest, both of them breathing in the same rhythm. "He turns the corner," Sarah whispered. "Gained 2 ounces overnight." Luna watched Mark sleeping with her puppy. Her tail wagged, not once but continuously, like she'd remembered how it worked. That same day, Mark told Luna about Afghanistan. He'd never talked about it, not even to me. But sitting there with Fighter on his lap and Luna watching, the words came like water through a broken dam. There was this dog, he said, belonged to our translator, saved 12 soldiers from an IED, barked until we stopped the convoy. When we pulled out, we couldn't take the translator's family. Couldn't take the dog either. Rules. His hand stroked Luna's ear. I think about that dog every day. Wonder if the Taliban found them. Luna put her head on his knee. First time she'd touched any of us voluntary-like, week 5, Sarah made the discovery. She was reviewing old files when she found them. X-rays from 2 years back. Same name, Tom Briggs. Same pattern of BB pellets in the muscle tissue. Same old fractures, healed wrong. This is Luna, she said, holding the films up to the light. From before. He's been hurting her for years. We had proof now. Documentation. Evidence that would hold up in court if it came to that. The community response surprised everyone. Someone, I never found out who, started a Facebook page called Justice for Luna. By week 6, it had 3,000 people following along. Donations poured in from strangers. Dog food, blankets, money for medical bills. The Lutheran Church took up a special collection. Even the Catholic parish across town contributed. And those 2 churches hadn't agreed on anything since the school board election in '92. Luna gained weight. Her milk came back strong. The puppies grew round as little sausages, tumbling over each other, playing with toys people donated. Fighter stayed smallest but fierce. He'd grab the rope toy and growl, making everyone laugh. And Luna started playing. First time was a Tuesday. Mark rolled a tennis ball across the floor, not really expecting anything. Luna looked at it, looked at him, then gently pushed it back with her nose. He rolled it again. She pushed it back. They did this for 20 minutes, and I swear she was smiling the way dogs smile. Mouth open, tongue lolling. Friday of week 6, everything changed. Nathan called from the IGA, voice tight as a fiddle string. Tom Briggs is in the coffee shop. He's got a piece of paper showing everyone. Says it's ownership documents for that dog. Says he's getting a lawyer. Says you stole his property and he wants it back. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, hit the clinic floor, shattered into pieces that scattered like everything we'd built over 6 weeks. Luna's head snapped up at the sound. Her body went rigid as a board. The playing stopped, the tail tucked under. She knew. Somehow, that dog knew her nightmare wasn't over. The sheriff's cruiser pulled into Sarah's clinic parking lot at 9:47 Monday morning. I watched through the window as Deputy Rick Paulson climbed out, adjusted his gun belt the way men do when they're uncomfortable, kept his eyes on the ground instead of the building. Tom Briggs got out of the passenger side, holding a manila folder like it was the deed to heaven itself. Luna's head lifted from her bed where she'd been nursing the puppies. Her nostrils flared wide. That tennis ball she'd been playing with rolled from her mouth onto the linoleum. "He's here," I said, though everybody already knew. Mark stood from where he'd been sitting cross-legged with the puppies, letting them climb over his legs like he was jungle gym equipment. His hand went to his right hip, old habit from Iraq, reaching for a sidearm that hadn't been there since 2012. Sarah grabbed her phone from the desk, already swiping to the camera. "Everyone needs to see this." The bell above the clinic door chimed the same sweet note it always did, but might as well have been a funeral bell. Briggs walked in first, boots heavy on the clean linoleum Sarah mopped every morning. Deputy Paulson followed, hand resting on his service weapon, not threatening exactly, but making sure we saw it. Luna scrambled backward so fast her paws slipped on the smooth floor. She hit the wall with her spine, pressed herself flat like she was trying to push through the drywall. Her bladder let go. The smell of ammonia filled the small exam room. "That's my dog," Briggs said, pointing with a finger yellow from nicotine. The puppies must have felt their mother's fear through some invisible wire. They huddled together in the pen Sarah had set up, Fighter in the middle, protected by his bigger siblings. The whimper he made was no bigger than a sigh. "Tom," Deputy Paulson said, shifting his weight foot to foot. Let's just handle this calm and easy. I want my property back, Rick. Briggs opened that manila folder, pulled out papers. Receipt right here. $400 cash, May 15th, 2022. Tag number 447B. Lee's Pet Store over in Rochester. He slapped the receipt on Sarah's desk, hard enough to make the pencil holder jump. I could see the faded purple ink of the carbon copy, the itemized list. German Shepherd, female, 8 weeks, $400. She's not property, Mark said. His voice had gone flat, the way it did when the memories got bad. When he'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking he was back in Fallujah. Law says different, Paulson said, but he wouldn't look anybody in the eye, studied a water stain on the ceiling instead. If he's got proof of ownership, look at her, Sarah said, pointing at Luna. The dog was trying to crawl under the examination table, even though she was too big to fit. Look what happens when she sees him. Dogs get skittish sometimes, Briggs said. Especially when they've been spoiled soft by people don't understand working animals. Mark's fist clenched so tight I could hear his knuckles pop. I saw him counting in his head, the technique his VA therapist had taught him. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. I have medical records, Sarah said. She turned her computer screen toward Paulson. Broken ribs, healed wrong. Embedded BBS from a pellet gun, infected wounds from an embedded collar that had grown into her skin. Prove I did any of that, Briggs said, crossing his arms. The BBs match the pellet gun registered to you, Sarah said. That was a guess, but Briggs's left eye twitched. Hit. Deputy Paulson shifted his stance again, looking more uncomfortable than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Tom, maybe we should follow the law, Briggs interrupted. That's your job, ain't it, cousin? That word hung in the air like smoke. Cousin. Now we all understood why Paulson was here, why he looked like he'd rather be getting a root canal. She was abandoned, I said, left to starve. That forfeits ownership under Minnesota statute. She ran off, Briggs said, quick as a whip. I've been looking for her for weeks, even posted about it online. He pulled out his phone, showed a Craigslist post dated 3 days ago. I could see the manipulation clear as day, backdating his concern to cover his tracks. Luna had managed to wedge herself between the examination table and the wall, a 60-pound dog trying to disappear. Her whole body shook like she was having a seizure, but I knew better. This was pure terror. The puppies were crying now, responding to their mother's fear with their own. Give me my dog, Briggs said. No. Mark stepped forward, putting himself between Briggs and Luna. Rick, Briggs turns to his cousin. Do your job. Paulson's hand moved to his radio, then stopped. This is a civil matter. It's theft is what it is. Briggs' voice rose. They're stealing my dog. That's a crime. Arrest them. Sarah kept recording, moving her phone to catch every angle. The whole county's watching this, she said. Live stream, 300 people, and climbing. That was probably a lie, but Briggs didn't know that. Please, I said to Paulson, just look at her. Look what happens when he gets close. Paulson did look. Luna had vomited now, bile pooling yellow on the white floor. Her eyes showed only white crescents, rolled back in her head like she was having a fit. Jesus. Paulson muttered under his breath. She's sick, Briggs said. Probably from whatever garbage they've been feeding her. Wouldn't be sick if she was where she belonged. He stepped toward Luna. Mark's hand shot out, caught Briggs's wrist. Don't touch her. Assault. Briggs yanked his arm away, turns to Paulson. You saw that? He assaulted me. Arrest him. Tom, calm down. Arrest him or I'm calling his supervisor. Paulson's face went red as a beet. I'm not arresting anybody. This is a civil matter. You want the dog back? Go through the courts. The courts? Briggs's voice went up an octave. She's mine, right there. Just let me take what's mine. He lunged past Mark, faster than any of us expected from a drunk. His hand caught Luna's collar. She screamed. That same sound from the warehouse, but worse, louder, like her soul was being torn from her body. Her bowels released. The smell filled the room, made my eyes water. Mark's military training took over. Pressure point on Briggs's wrist, forcing the hand open. Briggs's arm twisted behind his back, face pressed against the wall. All of it happening in maybe 2 seconds. I said, "Don't touch her." "Rick!" Briggs screamed. "Get him off me!" Deputy Paulson had his hand on his weapon now. "Sir, release him. Now." I could see the war in Mark's face, the tremor in his weapon hand. Not fear, but the effort of not breaking Briggs's arm, of not doing what every instinct said to do to a man who hurt the innocent. He let go, stepped back. Briggs spun around, face purple as an eggplant. "Arrest him. Veteran thinks he's above the law." The clinic door chimed again. Nathan Walsh walked in, followed by Margaret. Then the Hendersons from the next farm over. Betty Morrison with her oxygen tank. The Lutheran Church Council president. The coffee shop regulars. They kept coming, filling the small clinic until there was barely room to breathe. "Problem here?" Nathan asked, voice mild as milk. "This is police business," Paulson said, but his voice had lost all authority. "We're just here to check on Luna," Margaret Henderson said. "See how she's doing." Luna had crawled to Mark, pressed against his legs. He knelt down, hand gentle on her head. She was still shaking, but less violently. The crowd had formed a natural barrier between her and Briggs. "This is kidnapping," Briggs said. "Theft. I'll sue every one of you." "Go ahead," Sarah said. "I'll provide the medical records. 2 years' worth of abuse, all documented." Briggs's face changed. "You said you didn't keep." "I lied." Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. "Found the old x-rays from when you brought her in 2 years ago. Same BB pattern, same fractures. You wanted her put down because she wouldn't breed anymore, remember?" The crowd murmured. Someone said "bastard" under their breath. "That's slander," Briggs said. "It's documented. Your signature on the forms. 3 times. Paulson looked between the growing crowd and his cousin. "Tom, maybe we should go." "Not without my dog." "She's evidence now," Sarah said, "in an animal cruelty case." "There's no case. There will be." Nathan held up his phone. "County prosecutor's watching the stream. Says he's very interested." That was definitely a lie, but it hit home. Briggs's face went from purple to white. Luna had stopped shaking. The crowd's presence seems to calm her. All these people standing between her and her nightmare. The puppies had gone quiet too, watching through the pen's bars. "Judge Hayes will decide," I said. "Family court handles property disputes." "Fine." Briggs spat the word like it tasted bad. "Court's Monday. She better be there. All of them better be there." He pushed through the crowd. People stepped aside, nobody wanting to touch him. At the door, he turned back. "You think you won something? I got receipts. Law's on my side. Come Monday, I'm taking my dog, and there's nothing any of you can do about it." Fighter chose that moment to bark. High-pitched and squeaky, but fierce, standing at the pen's edge on legs like toothpicks, spreading himself wide as he could, defending his family. Briggs stared at that tiny puppy. Something flickered across his face, not anger, but calculation. He was already figuring what he could get for 4 purebred German Shepherd puppies. He left without another word. Paulson followed, shoulders slumped like he was carrying the whole world. The crowd stayed. Someone had brought coffee from the shop. Someone else had dog treats from the IGA. Luna slowly uncurled, accepted a piece of dried chicken from Betty Morrison's shaking hand. But I saw the way Luna kept watching the door, saw the tremor still running under her skin like electricity through a wire. Monday. 3 days to figure out how to keep a mother and her babies from going back to hell. Sarah's phone rang. She listened, and the color drained from her face like water from a tub. "That was the county clerk," she said. "Briggs filed an emergency motion. The hearing's been moved up." "When?" Mark asked. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The courthouse steps were slick with ice from overnight sleet. My boot heel caught on the 3rd step. Same step where Harold had proposed 38 years back, right after his case got dismissed. Mark caught my elbow before I went down, steadied me without a word. The folder in my hand felt thin as tissue paper. Veterinary records, photographs, Sarah's USB drive with the videos. Evidence that might mean nothing to a judge who saw animals as property. Judge Eleanor Hayes sat behind the bench reading through papers, glasses halfway down her nose like my third-grade teacher, Mrs. Peterson. The courtroom smelled of furniture polish and wet wool from people's coats. Luna was in a wire cage near the plaintiff's table. Court's orders, she had to be present. She lay flat on the cage bottom, nose pressed against the bars, eyes tracking the door like she was counting escape routes. Tom Briggs sat with his lawyer, some out-of-town fellow in a suit that cost more than our monthly mortgage. Clean-shaven, briefcase shiny as a new penny. Hired, not court-appointed. Property case 2024-47, the clerk announced, voice echoing off the high ceiling. Briggs versus Miller. Judge Hayes looked up from her papers. This is about dogs. Your Honor, the lawyer stood smooth as butter. My client is seeking return of stolen property. 1 German Shepherd female and 4 puppies. Total value approximately $2,000. They're not property. The words came out of my mouth too loud, bounced off the walls. Mark's hand found mine under the defendant's table, squeezed once. Mrs. Miller, Judge Hayes said, not unkind but firm. You'll have your chance to speak. The lawyer continued like I hadn't said anything. My client has clear proof of ownership, receipt, registration, veterinary records. Veterinary records showing abuse, Sarah called out from the gallery. Dr. Coleman, you're not a party to this case, the judge said. Please remain silent or I'll have you removed. The lawyer smiled, small, satisfied, like a cat with cream. As I was saying, Mr. Briggs has been searching desperately for his valuable breeding dog for weeks. He has advertisements, witnesses who saw him looking, backdated lies. Mark's whisper wasn't quiet enough. Mr. Miller, the judge's voice sharpened like a knife on a whetstone. Another outburst and you'll be removed. I felt Mark's leg bouncing under the table, his tell when the anger was building. Same motion before he'd punched a hole in the kitchen wall the day Katie died. Your Honor, the lawyer said, pulling out papers. The law is clear. Dogs are property under Minnesota statute. Property rights cannot be violated based on emotional responses. Luna whimpered in her cage. Just once. A sound so small the court reporter didn't look up from her typing. I've reviewed the filing, Judge Hayes said, taking off her glasses to clean them with a little cloth. The ownership documents appear to be in order. My chest got tight like someone was sitting on it. However, the judge continued, I'm concerned about these allegations of abuse. Unproven allegations, the lawyer said, quick as a flash. And even if true, which we deny, Minnesota law doesn't transfer ownership based on treatment. The remedy would be criminal charges, not theft. We didn't steal, I started. Mrs. Miller, the judge's gavel hit once, sharp as a gunshot. I understand you're emotionally invested, but the law is what it is. I saw it then, in her eyes, the same look the insurance adjuster had when he explained why Katie's experimental treatment wasn't covered. Sympathy that meant nothing. Rules that mattered more than what was right. I'm ordering the animals be returned to Mr. Briggs pending a full hearing, Judge Hayes said. That hearing is scheduled for Monday, Your Honor. A voice from the back. James Chen, the county prosecutor, stood up. Young fellow, maybe 30, but his voice carried. The state is filing animal cruelty charges against Mr. Briggs. These animals are evidence. When? The judge asked. The paperwork will be filed within the hour. Will be filed. The judge's mouth pulled tight. Not has been filed. Correct. Then I have no choice but to proceed with current law. The animals will be held at animal control pending both proceedings. Animal control's closed weekends, Sarah called out. There's no staff for medical care. Fighter, the smallest puppy, needs constant monitoring. Judge Hayes looked tired, older than her 68 years. Then we need alternative arrangements. Suggestions. My client can house them, Briggs's lawyer said, quick as a snake. He has appropriate facilities. No. Mark stood up. His chair scraped against the floor like fingernails on slate. Your Honor, please. I was in Fallujah. 3 tours. I've seen what happens when... He stopped, breathed, started again. She's terrified of him. The puppies need our property, the lawyer interrupted. Emotional arguments don't change legal facts. I watched Luna while they argued. She hadn't moved, hadn't lifted her head. Complete shutdown, like Katie in those final days when fighting seemed pointless. I'll take custody, Deputy Paulson said from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. He stood there in uniform, hat in his hands. I have a kennel. Used to be for canine units before the county cut the program. Climate controlled. I'll provide access for medical care. Judge Hayes nodded. That's acceptable. The animals will be housed at Deputy Paulson's facility through the weekend. Monday, 9 a.m., we reconvene. The gavel fell like an axe. The transfer happened in the parking lot while sleet turned to snow. Sarah had given Luna a mild sedative, just enough to keep her calm, not enough to affect the puppies if she nursed. Mark carried the crate to Paulson's vehicle while I held the carrier with the puppies. Luna's eyes tracked Mark through the bars, followed him until he was out of sight. I'll take care of them, Paulson said, quiet, almost apologizing. Your cousin, Mark started, is an ass. Always has been. Paulson's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. My father raised shepherds. I know what a scared dog looks like. We watched him drive away with Luna and her babies. Snow covered the tire tracks within minutes. That night, Mark didn't come to bed. I found him at 3 a.m. in the garage cleaning Harold's hunting rifle. Mark. He didn't look up from the gun. I know where he lives. Mark, no. 1 shot. Nobody would know for weeks. He lives alone, drinks himself stupid every night. Stop. I took the rifle from his hands. They were shaking, not from cold. This isn't Afghanistan. No. He looked at me then, and his eyes were empty as winter branches. There we had rules of engagement. Here, the bad guys have lawyers. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Luna in a strange kennel, wondering where we were. The puppies crying for their mother's warmth. At 5 a.m., I drove to Paulson's facility, a converted barn behind his house. Luna was in a clean kennel, but she hadn't touched her food. The bowl of kibble sat full as when he'd poured it. She lay on her side, teats swollen with milk she wasn't producing much of anymore. The puppies were in the next kennel. 3 of them played with each other, clumsy on their growing legs. Fighter lay separate, breathing but not moving, not responding when his siblings tumbled over him. He won't eat, Paulson said behind me. Tried bottle feeding, syringe, everything. It's like he's given up. Sunday night, 8 p.m. My phone rang. Paulson's voice came through, breathless. She's gone. What? Luna, dug under the fence, 6 feet of frozen ground. I don't know how. Her paws are hamburger, blood everywhere. But she's gone. I grabbed my coat. Mark was already starting the truck. We found the hole. Blood on the frozen dirt showed how desperate she'd been. Claw marks in the earth like she was digging through her own pain. The trail led toward town, toward the warehouse. We followed, driving slow through empty Sunday streets. Past the IGA, dark except for security lights. Past the coffee shop where tomorrow's fight would be decided. The blood trail got thicker. She was leaving pieces of herself on the pavement. The warehouse door stood open. We went in, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Luna lay in the same corner where we'd found her 7 weeks ago. She'd dragged an old blanket there, arranged it like she was making a nest for puppies that weren't there. She looked up when our lights hit her, and her tail gave one weak thump. She'd come back to the last place she'd been safe with her babies. Emily knelt beside her. Luna's paws were destroyed, nails torn off, pads shredded from digging through frozen earth. She dug 6 feet, with paws already damaged, driven by something stronger than pain. That's when Mark's flashlight caught something in the corner. Fresh scratches in the concrete. Not random. Letters, carved with broken claws. H-E-L-P, Monday, 9 a.m. Judge Hayes looked at the empty defendant's table. Where are the animals? Deputy Paulson stood, uniform pressed sharp, but face haggard like he hadn't slept. Your Honor, the German Shepherd escaped custody last night. She's been recovered but is at the veterinary clinic receiving emergency treatment. Escaped? Briggs's lawyer stood up fast. How convenient. My client demands your client can wait. Judge Hayes's voice cut through the courtroom like a scythe through wheat. Deputy, explain. The dog dug under 6 feet of fence, tore her paws apart doing it. Dr. Coleman has photographs. Sarah stood in the gallery, held up her phone. On the screen, Luna's paws looked like ground beef, nails hanging by threads of flesh. She was trying to return to her puppies. Paulson continued, or to the warehouse where she'd hidden them originally. We found her there at midnight, in the same corner. Judge Hayes studied the photograph on Sarah's phone. Bring the puppies. The mother stays at the clinic. Tom Briggs took the stand at 9:24. His white shirt had a coffee stain shaped like Texas on the pocket. The collar was buttoned wrong, second button in the third hole. His lawyer, Peterson, led him through the questions. When did you acquire the dog? May 2022, 400 cash at Lee's pet store. And she ran away when? 7, maybe 8 weeks ago. I wrote on my legal pad, showed Mark, 6 weeks on Friday. The story kept changing. I've been looking everywhere. Briggs continued, Adam's apple bobbing. Posted online, asked neighbors. Prosecutor Chen stood up. Objection, those posts are dated 3 days ago. They're backdated, Peterson said, smooth as oil. Mr. Briggs deleted the originals accidentally. Convenient, Chen said under his breath. Judge Hayes leaned forward, glasses catching the overhead lights. Mr. Briggs, why did the dog run? She was in heat. They get crazy when they're breeding. Sarah passed a note forward to Chen. He read it, corners of his mouth twitching up. No further questions, Peterson said. Chen's cross-examination started at 9:41. Mr. Briggs, you said the dog was in heat when she ran? Yeah. The puppies are 3 weeks old. Gestation for dogs is 9 weeks. That means she got pregnant immediately after escaping. Briggs shifted in the witness chair. So German Shepherds in heat don't typically dig through rope and fence to escape. They attract males to them. I ain't a vet. No, but you've owned multiple dogs, correct? Chen pulled out a file thick as a phone book. Your veterinary records show 5 dogs in the past 3 years. Dogs die. Farm life is hard. All 5 died. Objection, Peterson said. Relevance? Pattern of behavior? Chen responded. I'll allow it, Judge Hayes said. They got sick, Briggs said, voice getting higher. Or old. Or wouldn't work right anymore. Like the hunting dog you brought to Dr. Coleman 2 years ago. Briggs's face went red as a stop sign. That's different. Chen pulled out papers. Dr. Coleman's notes indicate you wanted a healthy dog euthanized because it wouldn't retrieve. It was my dog, my choice. But Dr. Coleman refused. She don't understand working dogs. Chen held up x-rays, the light box making them glow. These are from that visit. See these white dots? No. BBS, embedded in the dog's muscle tissue. Chen held up another set. These are Luna's x-rays from last week. Same pattern, same locations. Lots of people hunt with pellet guns, with their dogs as targets. The courtroom murmured like wind through corn. Judge Hayes hit her gavel once. Mr. Briggs, Chen continued, pulling out the spiked collar. Do you recognize this? Dried blood still marked the torn leather. The spikes caught the fluorescent lights. No. Your name is burned into it, right here. Chen pointed to the letters. Briggs. Anyone could have done that. The blood on it matches Luna's DNA. Peterson jumped up. There's been no DNA test. Actually, Chen smiled like a cat with a mouse. There has. Dr. Coleman ran it yesterday. Sunday emergency lab fee, but worth it. He produced the report, passed it to the judge. Peterson's face went white as paper. Mr. Briggs, how do you explain your collar with your name having Luna's blood? She must have cut herself. On the inside of the collar, the blood is embedded in the leather, Mr. Briggs, grown into it. Like she wore it so long it became part of her skin. 10:15 a.m. Betty Morrison took the stand. 83 years old, oxygen tank at her side. She pulled an iPhone from her purse, the big kind with large buttons for old eyes. I lived next to Tom for 6 years, she said, voice strong despite the oxygen tubes. Until I couldn't take it anymore. What couldn't you take? Chen asked. The sounds. She pressed play on her phone. The courtroom filled with a dog's screams. Then a man's voice slurred with drink. Shut up, you worthless. A sound like leather hitting meat. More screaming. That's from October, Betty said. 3 months ago. She played another video. Briggs in his backyard, visible through the chain-link fence, his boot swinging at something off camera. A yelp. The boot coming back into frame with blood on the steel toe. I have 17 videos, Betty said, scrolling through her phone, starting 2 years back when he got her. Briggs shot up from his chair. That old bat is lying. Mr. Briggs, sit down, Judge Hayes said, voice like ice. She's senile, lives alone with 40 cats. 3 cats, Betty corrected, calm as Sunday morning. And I may be old, but I know evil when I see it. My father was the same way with his dogs. Back then, nobody could do anything about it. 10:47 a.m. Nathan Walsh testified. I saw her in my dumpster Thursday night, called the police Friday morning. His hands twisted his IGA cap like he was wringing laundry. I didn't look close, just saw a stray and wanted it gone. If I'd seen she was nursing, was that desperate for food. What would you have done? Chen asked. Fed her, called for help, not. He looked at Briggs. Not let her go back to that. 11:10 a.m. Mark took the stand. You served in Iraq. 3 tours, 2009 to 2012. You've worked with military dogs? Yes, bomb sniffers, scout dogs. In your experience, how do trained working dogs respond to their handlers? Mark's jaw muscle twitched. With trust. Even in combat, under fire, they trust their handler completely. How does Luna respond to Mr. Briggs? She urinates herself, vomits, complete panic response. Is that normal? Only in torture victims. Peterson objected. The witness isn't qualified. I've seen tortured dogs in Iraq, Mark said louder. Dogs used by insurgents as IED triggers, dogs beaten for entertainment. Luna's response is identical. 11:35 a.m. I took the stand. The night we found her, she wouldn't drop that sandwich, even with a semi bearing down on her. She held on to food for her puppies while facing death. Why is that significant? A mother's instinct is the strongest force in nature. But when Tom Briggs walked into the clinic, she abandoned her puppies trying to hide. The only thing stronger than maternal instinct is terror of him. 11:58 a.m., Judge Hayes called recess. When court reconvened at 1 p.m., she looked different, older, more tired. I've reviewed Minnesota Statute 343, she began. Animal cruelty laws, property laws, abandonment statutes. She removed her glasses, cleaned them with slow, deliberate movements. My father raised hunting dogs, treated them like equipment. I watched him beat a retriever to death when I was 7 because it wouldn't fetch a duck. The courtroom went silent as a held breath. The law was different then. Dogs were property, period. No protection, no recourse. She put her glasses back on. But the law has evolved. Minnesota Statute 343.21 states that abandonment over 48 hours constitutes forfeiture of ownership. Mr. Briggs, by your own testimony, the dog has been gone 7 weeks. But I was looking, with posts dated 3 days ago. Number. She pulled out documents. Furthermore, Statute 343.235 states that animals subjected to documented cruelty can be seized and ownership transferred. Your Honor, Peterson started. I've seen the video's counselor, heard the testimony, examined the medical evidence. She looked at Briggs. Mr. Briggs, you forfeited any claim to these animals. Briggs shot up so fast his chair fell backward. You can't. I can, and I have. Furthermore, Mr. Chen, does the state intend to pursue criminal charges? Yes, Your Honor. 5 counts of animal cruelty. Chen paused. We're also investigating connections to a dog-fighting ring. What? Briggs's face drained white as milk. Chen held up papers. Your cousin, Deputy Paulson, provided information about gatherings at your property. Dogs with unexplained injuries. Large cash deposits coinciding with those gatherings. Paulson stood in the back of the courtroom. I'm sorry, Tom, but I'm done protecting you. You son of a... Additionally, Chen continued, there's an outstanding warrant for Mr. Briggs, DUI from December. He missed his court date. 2 officers moved toward Briggs. This is because of that veteran. Briggs pointed at Mark. Him and his mob. The officers cuffed him. As they led him past Luna's empty cage, he spat on it. Judge Hayes's gavel cracked like thunder. Custody of the dogs is awarded to Emily and Mark Miller. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. People hugging, crying, clapping. My legs went weak. Mark caught me, held me upright. Sarah was already on her phone with the clinic. Bring Luna now. Bring her home. But Chen approached us, face serious. There's something else. The dog-fighting investigation. Briggs wasn't working alone. He showed us a list. 3 names I recognized, local men with families, with dogs of their own. This isn't over, Chen said. 6 months later, August. The thermometer outside Sarah's clinic read 78 degrees. Luna lay on the examination table, tail beating against the metal surface steady as a metronome. Sarah's fingers traced the silver scars on Luna's leg, where fur had grown back everywhere except the deepest wounds. Perfect healing, Sarah said, pressing along the bone that had once been shattered. She can do anything now. Run, jump, climb stairs, without pain. I watched Luna's face while Sarah examined her. No more whale eye when hands approached. No tucked tail. She actually leaned into Sarah's touch, the way Harold's old bird dog used to during grooming. The puppies, I asked, though I already knew. Come see. We walked to the play yard behind the clinic. 4 young dogs, almost full-grown now, chased each other through the grass Mark had helped Sarah plant in spring. Fighter, still the smallest, had the tennis ball clenched in his jaws while his siblings pursued him in a tumbling pack. Nathan Wash sat on the bench his church had donated. His adopted pup sprawled across his lap like she owned him. He'd named her Hope. She had Luna's eyes, but none of her fear. When Nathan stood, Hope followed, tail high as a flag. She helped me, Nathan said, not meeting my eyes. After Margaret died last spring, I thought, well, Hope helped me remember there's still good in the world. Dr. Coleman arrived with the second puppy, now named Scout. They'd become therapy partners, visiting the nursing home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The residents at Sunset Manor lit up when Scout arrived, his gentle nature perfect for fragile hands that needed something soft to hold. Mrs. Henderson cried yesterday, Sarah said. First time she's shown emotion since her stroke. Scout just put his head in her lap and stayed there for an hour. Deputy Paulson, former deputy now, he'd resigned the day after testifying, brought the 3rd puppy. He'd named him Justice. They were training for search and rescue up in Montana where Paulson had moved to start fresh. Found a lost kid last week, Paulson said, Justice sitting perfect at his heel. 3-year-old wandered off from a campground. Justice tracked him 4 miles through forest. Kid was scared, but safe. The 4th puppy, Star, we'd kept Fighter's nickname unofficial, stayed with Luna at our place. When we got home, he was sleeping on the porch Harold had built, legs twitching with dream runs. Luna walked over, sniffed him nose to tail, then settled beside him. Mother and son, breathing in the same rhythm like they were still connected by invisible thread. The kitchen smelled of pot roast, carrots soft as butter, pearl onions swimming in gravy, potatoes that fell apart at a fork's touch. The same recipe my mother wrote on an index card I still kept in the recipe box Katie had decorated with hearts in 3rd grade. Mark stood at the stove, stirring gravy with the wooden spoon his grandmother had brought from Norway. He cooked now. Started after the trial. Said it helped his hands stay busy, gave them something to build instead of destroy. That prosecutor called. He said, Chen, the dog-fighting ring, 7 arrests total. Tom's looking at 5 years minimum. I nodded. I'd stopped following the case after Briggs pled guilty to avoid trial. Couldn't stomach the details that emerged about the bar in outside town, the blood on the walls. The shallow graves behind it were dogs that wouldn't fight were buried. Luna knows he's gone, Mark said. Watch this. He walked to the door, opened it wide enough for a man to walk through. Luna looked up from her bed but didn't move. 6 months ago, she would have scrambled to the door, checking for threats. Now she just yawned, showing teeth white as piano keys, and put her head back down. She knows she's safe. After dinner, we sat on the porch, watching evening settle over the cornfields. Luna lay between our rocking chairs. Star chased fireflies in the yard, snapping at lights he'd never catch, but enjoying the game anyway. Mark's hand rested on Luna's head, fingers finding that spot behind her ears she loved. Her eyes closed, and a rumble started in her chest, contentment given sound. I was going to kill him, Mark said, sudden as thunder. That night, had Harold's rifle loaded, drove to his trailer, sat outside for 3 hours. I waited. Sometimes the best thing was just to listen. Then I heard dogs barking. Not his, he didn't have any then. The neighbor's beagles, happy barking, playing. He looked at me. Realized if I did it, I'd be in prison. Luna would lose us, just like she lost everything else. Couldn't do that to her. I took his other hand, the one not petting Luna. She saved you too. Yeah, guess she did. September brought the town's first Luna's Law celebration. 500 people came to the park, more than showed up for the 4th of July. The mayor spoke about the new animal welfare ordinance, strictest in Minnesota. Mandatory jail time for abuse. No ownership rights for convicted abusers. Luna wore the therapy dog vest we'd bought her, sitting still while children lined up to pet her. One little girl, maybe 4, whispered something in Luna's ear. Luna licked her face, tail wagging. What did you tell her? I asked. That she's the bravest dog in the whole world, the girl said. My mama says Luna's brave 'cause she learned to trust people again, even after bad things happened. Betty Morrison sat in a lawn chair under the oak tree, her oxygen tank beside her, her 3 cats and carriers at her feet. Lived to see justice. She told everyone who'd listen, 83 years old, and finally saw a bad man face what he deserved. October brought first snow, just a dusting that melted by noon. Luna stood on the porch, nose testing the air. No fear now. Snow meant snowballs to catch, pads to make, Star to chase through white drifts. Mark had built an agility course in the backyard, using lumber from the old chicken coop. Every evening, he and Luna ran it together. She'd learned 12 commands, could navigate the entire course even with her eyes closed. We tried it once just to see. Smarter than most recruits, Mark told me, and more willing to learn. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Luna slept on her orthopedic bed, the one Sarah had special ordered for dogs with hip issues. Star curled against her belly the way he had as a puppy, though now he was almost as big as his mother. The other puppies were coming tomorrow. Nathan bringing Hope, Sarah bringing Scout, Paulson driving all the way from Montana with Justice. A family reunion. Mark sat in Harold's old recliner reading a Western novel. Every few pages his hand would drop to Luna's head. She'd lean into the touch, then go back to sleep. I sat with my journal trying to put words to what had happened since that February night. Luna doesn't flinch anymore, doesn't guard her food, doesn't check doors. She plays now, actually plays. This morning she stole Mark's slipper and made him chase her around the yard, both of them laughing. Do dogs laugh? Luna does. She chose life when death would have been easier. Chose trust when fear made more sense. Chose to feed her puppies while starving herself. We say we rescued her, but sitting here, watching her sleep without fear for the first time in her life, I know better. In the arithmetic of salvation, the books balance. We saved her body. She saved our souls. The space Katie left still aches, will always ache, but it's not empty anymore. It's filled with different love. Luna taught us that hearts don't have maximum capacity. They expand. That night, Christmas Eve, Luna slept deep as winter itself. Her breathing steady, paws twitching with dreams of running. Not running away anymore. Running toward. Her tail, even in sleep, kept steady rhythm against the floor. For the first time in her life, Luna was home. Friends, I need to tell you something I left out about that February night on Highway 7. I wasn't just driving home from the hospital. I was driving from Katie's grave. First time I'd visited since we buried her 8 months before. Couldn't face that stone with her name, those dates that made no sense. 16 years wasn't enough. Never is. When I saw Luna bleeding in my headlights, holding that sandwich like it was the Holy Grail itself, I recognized something. The weight that pulls you forward when everything in you wants to stop. The arithmetic of a mother's heart, where your pain means nothing if it saves them. Luna taught our whole town something that winter. Love isn't soft. It's steel wrapped in fur. It digs through frozen earth with bloody paws. It faces semi-trucks for a gas station sandwich. It chooses trust after betrayal, hope after horror. Folks still say Mark and I saved Luna, but you and I know the truth, don't we? That broken dog with her starving puppies saved us. Saved Mark from his darkness. Saved our town from looking away. Sometimes salvation comes on 4 legs, scared and scarred, teaching us that love doesn't end. It transforms. Disclaimer. This story was inspired by true events but created solely for entertainment purposes. This narrative does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence, animal cruelty, or harmful behavior toward any living being. All characters, including Tom Briggs, Emily Miller, Mark Miller, Dr. Sarah Coleman, and others, are entirely fictional products of creative imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental. The depictions of animal abuse are included only to highlight the importance of animal welfare and the triumph of compassion. This work advocates for responsible pet ownership and humane treatment of all animals.